Hey folks, I'm Vivek and I'm here to talk about muffins. How many of y'all are attending just because of the word muffins in the talk? Quick show of hands. Okay, all right. I promise I'll tell you where to find them. So the talk is going to be focused on rag poisoning. Folks familiar with rag poisoning or what it is? We'll set the stage for it. Okay, I see some in the back. So this is going to be the agenda for our lightning talk. We'll cover what is RAG or what it stands for, and how it can be poisoned, and why should anyone care when, especially where they're doing GenAI development. We'll have a few suggestions based on the lessons learned on what we are seeing within the MSIT deployment around detections and mitigations, and in the industry and where the research is headed, and then we'll conclude. So, for folks not familiar, the acronym RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. So basically what it is, it's using an LLM application or helping an LLM application get its responses grounded in more accurate and up-to-date content from external or from knowledge data sources that developers can contextualize the LLM application with. So a good way to think of it is, let's say I take M365 Copilot, or I take a regular Copilot agent, and I want it to be contextualized to the SharePoint site that has a bunch of documents that my organization or my division has worked on. And for users who are outside or even within my division, they want to interact and find out what my division does, who is working on what work stream. That's the way I would summarize it at a high level. There's a strong synergy between LLMs and how they are supposed to handle the external knowledge data sources, and that's the key that we are going to focus on. The next question is, how can we poison RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation data sets? So it involves, in the early example that I gave you, where I have a SharePoint site and the documents that are part of the SharePoint site, consider scenarios where insider risk or somebody not intentionally or unintentionally having inaccurate or data that they want others to trip on. What I mean by that is, if it's, let's say, it's a website about numbers and trying to report accurate numbers, it's very easy for someone to make intentional or unintentional mistakes and fudge the numbers and have the LLM application that's using that whole knowledge data source report inaccurate numbers for people who are interacting with the LLM application. So that's what is, in a nutshell, what RAG poisoning is. Why should we care about it? It's, folks familiar with the OWASP top 10 for LLM? Yep. We talk about training data set poisoning. That's not really, I would say that's a click deeper than RAG poisoning, because there you need access to the underlying models. In the case of generic GenAI applications, the model is a black box where you're interacting with a chatbot as an end user, and very few instances of the time where you're creating this LLM application on top of the or like a custom Copilot on these data sources, will you have access to the data sets that you're going to feed it to. So that's where, if I have not good data or contentious data, that can result in an LLM application generate incorrect or biased or even harmful outputs. And we spoke about the tight linkage or the synergy between LLMs and the knowledge data sources that they're going to refer, and that's what will be used for manipulating the model responses. There's been research already done. These are the two prominent ones that you can go look up in arXiv. Ton of research is also happening in this space around how easy it is and what should be done to tackle this problem. The next, building on why should anyone care, for folks who had been to Hacker Summer Camp this year, this was from security research who's there at BlueHat, who we work very closely with at Microsoft, around 15 ways to break Copilot. Gained a lot of media attention as well, and definitely made us rethink about how we handle our data sources. There was another talk at DEF CON around confused Copilot. So they were focusing again on data poisoning and how an insider within a company that has access to this enterprise data, enterprise context, can easily go ahead and result in contentious results and make an LLM generate outputs that won't be in line with its safety alignment and safety training. So it's not just specific to Microsoft. Just wanted to show this another piece of news out there that we have other GenAI platforms and other GenAI applications as well, which are susceptible to this problem. This is a popular one that came out a few weeks ago around Gemini for work and how researchers were able to manipulate the underlying data source in the enterprise context and have Gemini spit out manipulated output. So building on top of it, we saw, okay, we know what RAG poisoning is. Why should we care? The first and foremost reason is that system prompts, the guardrails that define an LLM application, you can assume that it is public information. It's like a lot of articles out there that, oh, we were able to trip the information, but give out an LLM its system prompts. But we should assume that it is already public information. It's fairly trivial to get that information out as well. Second one is people's email IDs. There's like automated tools to find email addresses, the combination for users. And then you have the system prompt, you have the email ID. So you can basically send an email which and we have seen this in the wild as well, that people will have like white text on white, and they'll have like markdown instructions as part of the email that you send to corporate users. For the third part is around the M365 context. So when you consider M365, the graph for a particular user or the interactions that they do within the enterprise context, the documents that they work with, the people they interact with, the blast radius just increases manifold. The problem amplifies at scale. We do not have any good ways, like we have protections for checking external, internal emails, Teams messages, but there are too many avenues, and we feel that there's not enough controls where we can check any and all interactions that are coming in from external, at least at the LLM interaction layer, or do the handoff between all interactions that are happening in the external context. So that awareness within the graph needs to be, I would say, has to be built in or has to be written. And as you already may be familiar, or we are getting into this agentic phase with GenAI, where it's fairly trivial to build an agent on top of well-known copilots or with datasets that users are already working off of. So Copilot Studio or with Agentforce, with Salesforce, it becomes very easy, and the data sets are interconnected, the dependencies are too many, and just increases the possibility for entry points and how you can infect the RAG knowledge sources. So based on what we have seen, couple of things that we feel within Microsoft security that we feel where the research is, and we are seeing research happen in this area as well. The detection and mitigation around these would involve some sort of behavior-based anomaly detection that we had with our traditional products in identity, in like endpoint device monitoring. That needs to happen in the interaction with these LLM applications as well, because otherwise it's very hard to sort of scale and track each and every signal that the user is interacting with. The second one, which will involve more research and more like thinking about how to solve the problem, would be around sandboxing. So we achieve this with like attachment filtering in Office. Something similar we feel should be done in interaction with the GenAI Copilot, and especially when they're interacting with knowledge sources as well. Which knowledge source you're interacting with and when to sandbox the interactions with the knowledge sources would be critical decision points in like an application performance and application design phases. For using, when you're using custom-built GenAI applications built off of platforms like Azure, OpenAI, or Amazon Bedrock, you would need to define strict onboarding processes as to how you onboard these data sources before you connect it to your LLM application. And then for pre-built or embedded GenAI applications, so think of things like copilots, we need to have like a staggered approach for rollout, where you can go ahead and have like a, we feel that if we have a ring deployment strategy, that will work best. Obviously, that didn't happen. I mean, enterprises are just in the rush to get copilots out there, but we feel that it just diving head into the problem if you don't take this, staggered or a ring-based approach. And the underlying solution to the whole problem is like if you have robust data security and governance, then yeah, there's no taking away from it. The foundation for data security still apply. It's just that GenAI is a layer on top of it. So with that, I'll conclude by saying that it is definitely a hard problem to solve. The industry and the research, we see people are investing time in trying to figure out what would be the best way to solve this problem, so that we are not taking like a end user experience or like a compute handoff as well. Because imagine you're already having like a delayed response and interacting with the copilot, and then you build in things like sandboxing and real-time detection that will just make the user experience a nightmare. So work has to be done there. We also saw that it's not a problem specific to Microsoft. It's basically a GenAI platform problem. We feel that behavior-based and sandboxing would be where solutions may arise. So think of it like either Microsoft product or a way where our signals coming in from copilots or from the product telemetry, end user, device, identity, etc. have to be stitched together and understand the behavior in which they are interacting with the GenAI application. And again, like back from the last slide, no taking it away anything, that the underlying data sources need to be secure and hardened before we decide that it is going to be used as a knowledge source for GenAI applications as a RAG database. So with that, you see the AI robot handing out muffins for people who are attending the talk, and I promise there will be muffins at the end of the talk. So you just need to wait for a couple of hours, and the Strike folks or the BlueHat folks will put out muffins in the corridor. So with that, thank you everyone for listening to the talk, and hope you have a great rest of the BlueHat.